Hi, this is King of Review. In this problem, we're asked to find a to the power of 3, where a is this matrix here. A matrix is a rectangular arrangement of numbers into rows and columns. So a to the power of 3, this is the same thing as a times a times a. So we have a to the power of 3 equals 1, negative 3, 0, 1, this is our first matrix here, times itself, 1, negative 3, 0, 1, and times itself one more time, 1, negative 3, 0, and 1. So this is how we'll figure out what a to the power of 3 is. So here we're going to start by multiplying these two matrices together. The product of two matrices is defined as long as the number of columns in the first matrix is equal to the number of rows in the second matrix. So if we look at the dimensions, row by column of the first matrix, and compare it to the dimensions, row by column, of the second matrix, these two numbers here must be equal in order for it to be defined. So let's look at this first matrix. This is a 2 by 2, and this one is also a 2 by 2 because it's the same one. So since these two numbers here are equal, we know that this is defined. The product will be defined. So the number of columns in matrix 1 is equal to the number of rows in matrix 2. Therefore, we can go forward and multiply these two together. And we also know something about the dimensions. If we compare these two numbers here, the number of rows in column 1 times the number of columns in matrix 2, this will become the new dimensions. So here we'll look at these numbers. We know that the dimensions of the final product will be a 2 by 2. So let's set this up. To multiply corresponding entries, what we're going to do is we're multiplying these two matrices together. So we multiply corresponding entries in the first row of the first matrix and the first column of the second matrix, and then we'll add those together. So let's set this up. We're going to have two products that we're adding together for this first entry. The first one is going to be 1 times 1. 1 times 1. And the second product here is negative 3 times 0. So you can see that we're multiplying the corresponding entries in the first row of the first matrix and the first column of the second matrix, and we're adding them together. So this is how we calculate our first entry, and we're going to do the same thing for the second entry here. So we have 0 times 1 plus 1 times 0. And now for our second column. So I'm just setting up the entries here. So we have 1 times negative 3 plus negative 3 times 1. And the final entry is 0 times negative 3 plus 1 times 1. So this is how we calculated the product of the first two matrices here. And remember, we still have to multiply this by this last matrix A here. So now all I need to do is simplify each of these entries here. 1 times 1 plus negative 3 times 0. This is the same thing as 1 plus 0, so we get a 1 here. And 0 times 1 plus 1 times 0, this is 0. 1 times negative 3 plus negative 3 times 1. This gives us negative 6. And 0 times negative 3 plus 1 times 1. This gives us 1. So this is the product of our first two matrices multiplied together, and we still have this last matrix A that we have to multiply. So now we have a 2 by 2 matrix times another 2 by 2 matrix. This is defined. Again, we're looking at this here, and those are equal. So let's multiply these out. Again, we'll multiply it in the same fashion. So we're multiplying corresponding entries in the first row of the first matrix and the first column of the second matrix, and we're adding them together. So let's calculate this. We have 1 times 1 plus negative 6 times 0. This is our first entry. And now let's work on the second entry here. We have 0 times 1 plus 1 times 0. And for the second column, I'll set these entries up. So we have 1 times a negative 3 plus negative 6 times 1. And our final entry is 0 times a negative 3 plus 1 times 1. So now I'll calculate each of these entries. We have 1 times 1 plus negative 6 times 0. This gives us 1. 0 times 1 plus 1 times 0. This is 0. 1 times negative 3 plus negative 6 times 1. This is negative 9. And 0 times negative 3 plus 1 times 1. This equals 1. So this is our final answer, and this is letter B. Thanks for watching.